Now I'd like to introduce you to our honored guest, Speaker Yuli Edelstein, who is used to following strong women in the country where Golda Meir became prime minister back in 1969. You are so far ahead of us, that is for sure. He has an amazing story. Born in the former Soviet Union, and in the late 1970s, he tried to immigrate to Israel. The KGB had different plans. He spent 3 years in a Soviet labor camp known as a refusenik for doing so. He eventually emigrated to Israel with his family and became one of the founders of a new political party of new immigrants to Israel. I hope I get the pronunciation correct, but Yisrael Be'alaya, is that correct? Good enough? Okay, thank you. But what it did was it reflected the large group of immigrants who were coming into Israel from elsewhere. That party eventually merged into the Likud party, and recently he came in third in the Likud primaries and now serves as in the government's leadership as the third highest ranking official, the Speaker of the Knesset. So if you would please take the stage with me, and we would love to hear from you. Speaker Edelstein, welcome.
Wow. This is fun. This is you. Thank you. Read it? Yeah. All right. Come.
It's inscribed to Yuli Edelstein, the Algemeiner Warrior for Truth Award at our second annual Gala, presented on February 3rd, 2015 in New York City, and the famous verse from Isaiah 62:1, "For Zion's sake, I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet."
Thank you so much. It's really exciting. Thank you for taking the trouble to learn Hebrew in order to introduce me. That was very close. And to my legal advisors back in Israel, I want to say for the protocol that I was not reading the text messages. I'm not allowed to participate in any form of fundraising, so I don't have a clue about all those donations. I, first of all, want to mention my, shall we say, co-honorees. Is there an expression like that? The Ariel family and Donald Trump, and obviously Melissa on behalf of her mother, John Rivers. And say thank you to you, Simon, and to David, and to all those behind today's evening. And if I would just say that this award is very important, I guess I'll be boring you. But I really mean it. Because if we are talking about an award called the Warrior for Truth, I kind of wonder, there are lots of warriors. There are lots of courageous people all around the world. It's much more complicated these days to expose truth. Actually, I think that we have the perfect right to get up right now and march straight back to paradise. Because if I remember the story correctly, we were expelled from paradise because we ate from that fruit and we got that ability to distinguish between good and evil. I sometimes have a very sad feeling that we are entitled to go back to paradise. we are losing this distinction. There's no truth anymore. It's all about different narratives. It's his truth and her truth and their truth. And we all have to understand each other. There is no truth anymore. And I will immediately, kind of a disclaimer, say, no, I don't mean that we all have to fight each other. We can and should understand each other, obviously. We can be diplomatic. You don't have to shout your truth all the time. But there is still ultimate truth. There are no two truths. I'm sorry about the association, but just last week I was participating in a huge ceremony in Prague with 20-something of my colleagues, presidents and speakers of different European parliaments because of the International Holocaust Memorial Day. So I guess I'm still under the impression. When Auschwitz was liberated, there were prisoners from different countries waving their flags, except for the Jews. Jews didn't have a flag. Some of them used their uniform because it was kind of blue and white, and they were waving their uniforms. The truth was, before the State of Israel was created, that there was no Jewish flag, no Jewish homeland. So I have a problem with these two narratives. The truth is that on this day, it was mentioned already by you, Simon, on the day of Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat, the Israeli Knesset was born. Actually, if it were not for elections in our country, I wouldn't be able even to be here, because Tu B'Shvat is a huge day in the Knesset. Thousands of people coming in special sessions, everything. And the truth is that the Knesset is probably the most democratic parliament in the world. Difficult to say that, definitely for the Speaker of the Knesset. How come? It's politically incorrect to say that. Yes, there are many democratic parliaments in the world. But in a country like Israel, with the probably most mosaic society you can imagine, everyone is represented, and I mean it again. This is the truth. There's no significant minority in the State of Israel that is not represented in the Knesset and whose voice is not heard. Sometimes I have this feeling, as an Israeli and the Knesset member and the Speaker of the Knesset, that we are so open that the brains fall out. But I prefer it this way with my background. I prefer it this way. I prefer hating things that some of my colleagues are saying when they take the floor. But this is the truth about Israel. It's a full-fledged democracy, and it shouldn't and wouldn't be any other way. And the truth, yeah, you can applaud the State of Israel. It's not for me. And the truth is, about different claims to the land of Israel, that each time when I take my dog out for a walk, where I live, it's south of Jerusalem, I walk exactly in the steps of our forefathers on what is called the Patriarch's Road. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they all walked the same path. And this is the truth about our claims to the land of Israel, and about some others saying that probably it's not really yours. We've been here. This is the truth. And when I was sitting in the UN, listening, trying to listen before I got sick and tired and went out, to Abbas and about his legitimate claims to the land of Israel, that was not his narrative. That was not another version of truth. That was lie, simple lie about all those claims. When we discuss an issue of Iran, it's so politically correct to go into this proper discussion about the Israelis saying that probably it could and would be used for military purposes. But there are others who are saying that probably it's atom for peace. It's a legitimate discussion. It's a little bit difficult to understand the shortage of energy in a country like Iran. They urgently need some other sources of energy there to develop new sources for their peace programs for energy. But the truth is, they are getting dangerously close to having nuclear weapons. And the truth is that we can say about North Korea whatever we want, but we can't do much. Because there was an interesting discussion about North Korea having nukes or not having nukes, using it for peaceful purposes or probably using them for military purposes. Now the answers are there. Our ability to act, our means the world, to act is not there anymore. So we'd better act now, because the truth is that Iran is getting dangerously close to nuclear weapons. And as we're here for Algemeiner, I can say that media today can play a very important role. And I already heard some of the frustration coming from those who took the floor before me here. And when I see a report, and it's a true example, on one of the major TV channels, not Fox News for the record, with this running line saying, 2 Israelis, 2 Palestinians killed in violent clashes. It was true. 2 Israelis and 2 Palestinians were killed in violent clashes. It was true. That was not the truth. The truth was that a mom with a baby were driving a car and they were shot from zero range by 2 Palestinian terrorists. And the truth was that one of the patrols, IDF patrols in the area, managed in what we call the hot pursuit to reach them and shoot them. That was the truth. And when we were talking about the role of the media, it's not such a shame not to just report, but to rather take a stand for the truth and to say that there is not just bringing the news and for the people to judge. There is truth out there. And I do think in a very old-fashioned and primitive way that media, newspapers, internet today, as it was mentioned, TV channels can stand for the truth. No, they don't have to really educate, and they're not political leadership, but they can say things not necessarily in a very relative way. And they don't have to understand in the exact same way the robber and the victim of the robbery. And I think that when this will be the kind of reporting about the Middle East, late John Rivers would have to be so angry and so passionate when talking into the camera about what is happening in Israel and what is happening in our part of the world. This is the truth about things happening there. Media is not, Simon, as some suggested to you, about just making money or about entertainment. It could be about things that made it possible for me to stand here, because I am still an optimist. Because just 30 years ago, millions of people around the world knew how to stand for the truth. They were not exactly understanding certain advantages of the Soviet regime. They were not saying that the two sides were right. They were not saying, no, some were, but a small minority, that there are Jews who are unhappy with their life in the Soviet Union, but there are some others who are very happy with their life in the Soviet Union. So we have to understand these Jews and those Jews. No, there were millions of people, including in the media. They were not just reporting. They were smuggling our letters out. They were not just reporting. They were bringing information to us. And when that was the situation, when Jews of all types and kinds and persuasions, and when non-Jews of all kinds of positions and standings, and yes, media reporters said enough was enough, and when the president of that country still knew how to distinguish between good and evil, and called the then Soviet Union an evil empire, yeah, I remember he was criticized. But it did bring the Iron Curtain down. And it did bring us out, millions of us. It happened 30 years ago, that's true. But as I've said, I'm still an optimist. And there was that rabbi who was really annoying because he knew everything. Kids hated him. He always knew everything about everything. And there was that smart kid who said, I know how to deal with that rabbi. I'll catch a butterfly. I'll come to that rabbi holding a butterfly in my hand, and I'll say to him, what do I have in my hand? He obviously would know the answer. He would say, you have a butterfly, my son. And then I'll ask him the second question. I'll ask him whether the butterfly is alive or dead. And if he says alive, quetch, and it's dead. And if he says dead, I open my hand, the butterfly flies away. He came to that rabbi. He asked him the first question. The rabbi definitely knew the answer, a butterfly. He asked his second question. And the rabbi looked him straight in the eyes and said, it's all in your hand, your son. It's all in your hand. It's still in our hands. Thank you.